Hello, and welcome to another edition of PaynePoints of Interest, where we talk about and answer questions relating to all things small business. So grab your coffee and sit back and join us as we start this discussion. I'm Sarah Harbuck, your host, and with me is Ray Coleman. Hey, Ray.
How you doing?
And we're finishing out the week with our special guest, Stephanie Scheller. Thank you, Stephanie.
Hey, hey.
All right, so we've been talking about energy and psychology and all these wonderful philosophical ideas that are related to that. And I wanted our last topic this week to be how the psychology of managing people can affect us as being bosses or employees or, taking on clients. So, yeah.
I like this topic because for a small business, probably the topic that you have the least amount of experience with.
Yes.
Most small business owners, when they first start, they have never been a boss for anybody. Not even themselves.
Yeah.
So this is...
Right.
This is something that people can really use.
How do you? I guess basically the most general question I could ask is, how do you be a good boss? What's the psychology behind being a good boss, being a good employee? Things like that. That we seem to have kind of lost, I think, our way in society with not being able to keep people and what have you. And I'm sure that there's many factors involved, like we don't have time to list. But when it comes to the actual brain and how we emote these things and how we feel about them, what have you noticed in your experience that makes a great boss, makes a great employee?
There's a couple of really, really important things. And I think, Ray, you made a really key point here. Like, so many small business owners, they've never even had to manage themselves. We go through school and then to college, and we're told what to do, when to do, how to do it. We're given coaches, we're given teachers, like we're told everything. And that's a whole nother side issue, right? Because in school you get a grade and that grade defines you, right? And in the real world, it's not like that. So
yeah,
you get a grade, and the beautiful thing in the real world, you get to rework it until you get the grade you want, right?
Right.
But we have this issue where we're not taught. Most of us have a old guy I used to know. He would always joke, people get their MBAs, they're manager by accident. Right. And that's where most of it, when I first became a manager, I realized my first day as a manager that I was actually managing a team of people. When they were moving me from being a sales rep to being the retention manager, they made it sound like all I was doing was managing the clients and keeping people around. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, I have a team of 3 people. What the heck?
Right, yeah. Human beings that are I'm supposed to tell them what to do, and they're supposed to do it. That's kind of weird.
Right. Right. And they're counting on me, and they're sharing their frustrations and their hurts, and it was just overwhelming. And I think when most of us become our own manager, our own boss, we actually become very difficult. You are a harder boss on yourself than anyone else could ever be. You are your worst boss because you hold yourself to higher standards. You push yourself to work harder. You cut yourself less slack. You reward yourself a lot less, right? We are terrible managers for ourselves. And so we sit here, and unfortunately, then we start kind of carrying that over to our employees, and we start treating them the same way we've treated ourselves, not realizing the damage we've actually caused for ourselves. And it just starts this vicious cycle of I'll hear people who'll be like, well, I don't ask anyone to do anything I couldn't do, which I personally think is total bunk.
Yeah.
You should be hiring people to do shit you can't do. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
You're okay. No, you're fine.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Right? That's the whole point of hiring people, for crying
to fill in that gap that you aren't so good at. Yeah, I hear that a lot from a lot of small business owners. Well, I don't ask them to do anything I wouldn't do. Well, that could be the problem.
That's part of your issue. You should be hiring people to do stuff you can't do, and you should be come on, you can't be the leader in everything in the business. I know people who are like, well, I've got to figure out how to do QuickBooks so that I at least know what's going on in there. I'm like, no, you don't. You just need to know how to read a financial statement.
Right.
You don't need to be able to freaking do QuickBooks. Come on, hire a bookkeeper, move on, get back in your energy advantage here. Right. But this this concept of I'm going to manage people the same way I manage myself is really, really damaging. And it becomes important. So you'd ask me, what is the key? And I'm like racking my brain, like, is there a key to managing people? And I think one of the most important, if I had to really kind of sum it up, I think one of the biggest things I could give, if someone wanted one thing to work on, would be to improve your emotional quotient level. Emotional quotient comes down to understanding and being able to influence the emotions of yourself and others. And so this is your ability to recognize when you are upset, when you're happy. They did a study, it was at one of the Ivy Leagues a few years ago, and they did a study to find out how many emotions there are. And typically, if you tell people, give them 30 seconds, you could give them 2 minutes to write down every emotion they can think of. And they'll come up with between, 5 to 15 max.
Right.
And that's, 15. I've never had anyone come up with 15. 12,
like, it'll be so difficult for me to come up with 15 emotions.
Right. There's 22
Wow.
base emotions, and there's different levels of each one. So there's literally hundreds of emotions you could experience every day. And most of us don't recognize that in ourselves, and we don't recognize it in others too. Like when you're talking to someone, we can usually tell if someone's upset, but can you tell if they're upset with you or with something else?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that most people can't do that. That's what EQ is about. And when you start to grow your emotional quotient and increase your EQ level, because that is, the perk, like your IQ doesn't really change. Like you get the IQ you get at birth, except for like, if you go out and drink a lot on Fridays, then maybe you have
Right.
a few points less.
It only goes down. It
Or
never
you have a
goes
few
up.
kids, they say that
Right.
kills some brain cells.
But EQ doesn't. So EQ actually changes, your emotional quotient level will shift from childhood through adolescence through adulthood. And then your ability to tap into it, it's kind of like a muscle. So when you're when you're feeling really good and you're at the gym, you can move a lot more weight. When you're not feeling good and you're at the gym, you can't move as much weight. And the same thing with your EQ. When you're in a good place, you have, full access for your emotional quotient. You can understand other people. When you're not in a good place, you have a harder time understanding other people. And that I think is really important to being a good leader and a good manager, is being able to recognize that not everyone is the same, right? Everyone has different communication styles. Everyone has different things that drive them. We do these things called the TTI assessments, and on there we have these driving forces, and there's 6 primary driving forces. Each side has 2. Each driving force has 2 sides to each coin. There's 12 things people could be driven by, and each one's going to play differently into how they go throughout the day. Unless you have some basic understanding of what people are driven and motivated by, you're going to struggle to get your team going, because what happens is we start offering rewards that we would be interested in, but not everyone's interested in the same thing.
Yeah.
So that is huge. So, and that all comes back to this, improving your emotional quotient level, which is all about psychology. And when you do that, you'll start to recognize, I've got to shift my communication style. I've got to shift how I motivate people. Like I have to make shifts across the board.
Yeah, I feel like, I can fail when managing people to not communicate correctly. I feel like that kind of is my biggest breakdown, is I just think, oh, they're going to read my mind and they're going to do that, without giving some clear instructions. So, I know that if I'm having a bad day, I can react certain ways that, are not great for any employee or person working with me. I know one of my assistants, when I was doing wedding photography full time, I bit her head off one day and was like, I'm sorry, that wasn't really about you. That was about me and what was going on, but I should not have dumped on you that way. And of course, that fixed the situation, but we're all human and we're all going to fail at some things. But when you start a business and you start, hiring people, knowing how, your attitude is going to affect the people who work for you. I've worked for people before in the past where they've had the crappiest attitude, and, that was not a fun work experience, going into that every day, So, I think that, the atmosphere that you create as a business owner with the relationship you have with your employees, but then just as the company culture, if you will, or even if it's a small company, creating a family-like environment where people feel more, I don't even know what to say there, like more free to sort of discuss some of these things versus I'm your boss and that's how it is, you know?
That was kind of
Right.
my next question was, like, you know, your managing style sort of establishes what your culture of your company is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So in like the communication between boss to employee is one of the big things about that. So,
Yep.
you know, if you're a real big email person, you may want to email everyone in your company in order to communicate things. But if you're employed somebody who does not use email well,
Yeah.
then you're not communicating with them. And it's kind
Right.
of on you to reach them less than it is for
Yeah.
them to adjust to you automatically, I think.
Uh-huh. No, I agree. And I see, here's the thing. So this is where, you know, earlier in the week, I commented that you need to hire the right person for the right company, for the right job, for the right manager.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've hired someone who's not a perfect fit for you, like your job is either to hire the right person or adjust your own style to match them and help them perform at their best. Like your job is not necessarily to rewrite your entire self. But like, I know, you know, one story, I will never forget this one. A friend of mine was telling me, I was at his office one month and we were chatting and he was telling me about how his new office manager, she was so amazing. Oh my gosh, he loves her to death. She's gotten everything. She's put things in order. She is just, oh my gosh, he just could not talk about her enough. And the next month I come in and he goes, you know what? I almost lost my office manager. I said, what the heck? Like apparently you can't afford to lose her. You love her. What happened? And he says, well, you know, she went to my wife and she thinks I hate her.
Wow.
And he was like, I don't know how she got that concept. And so he's this super driven, motivated, like he walks into the office, he walks down the hallway to his desk, starts work. Like that's how his brain works. Like goal oriented, go to desk, start work, get going, close sales, keep the business moving. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Every single day he would walk right by her office
And not
caught
say a
up
word.
and focused and not say a word. Yep.
Yeah.
So she thought he hated her. She thought so she was going to quit and go find somewhere else to work where people would appreciate her more.
Yeah.
And fortunately, she went to his wife and explained it. And his wife was like, please don't do that. He loves you. He thinks you are the best thing that's happened to this business this year. Like, oh my God, please don't. We need to talk. And we had this conversation, right? Different communication styles. For her, him walking by every day was like devastating.
Yeah, that
She
was the
just needed him
communication.
to look in.
And
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes though in a situation like that we're so conditioned to not be to start any kind of conflict with anyone. So you know, I feel like a simple conversation. But nobody's really to have it that particular way. You know, had she said, "Hey, I just wanted to check in with you. Are you cool with the way I'm doing things? Like, are you liking? You know, do I need to improve in anything?"
Right.
Would have solved that issue right away. But the problem is, and I'm guilty of this as well. You know, sometimes you just get so caught up in your own head, or you just think, "Well, I know," you know, when you don't know because you haven't even asked the question.
Right.
Some of this stuff could be solved in such a simple way, and yet we make it so complicated sometimes.
But that's part of the manager job, right? The manager should, like, you know, at least periodically, like once a
in.
week, check, hey guys, just want to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah.
I want you to know that I think you're okay.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Well,
granted,
like,
it was
this is where I go off on people all the time. I'm like, you have got to run freaking team meetings and one-on-one meetings. Your
Right.
team, look, human beings love performing well. No one wakes up and is like, today I want to feel like I'm incompetent. Oh my gosh. Like,
Right, that'd be so great.
no one- no
Straight
one's like-
C's today, yay.
Yeah, right. Like no one loves that. We all want to feel like we're good at something where and your team wants to do that too. Your job is to help them figure out how they can reach that level of competence and really, really that streamlined competence, right? Where they're really operating at a high level. They can't do that if they don't get feedback from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good and bad.
Yep.
Both sides, right?
And the burden is definitely on the boss for that particular thing. Sure. Well, I think this is an interesting topic and I would love to talk about it more in detail. So maybe we'll have to have you back, Stephanie. I think that's going to be it for us today, though. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, if you guys have any questions, comments, or things you want to add to today's topic, you can find us on our social media at PaynePoints.com, Facebook and LinkedIn at PaynePoints, Instagram at Payne.points, and Twitter at PointsPayne. You can now call or text us at 855-PAYNEPT. That's 855-729-6378. Stephanie, tell our listeners where they can find you.
You can find me hanging out over on Facebook for the most part. You can check out either my page, which is the Stephanie Scheller page. I think it's under Success Steph, or you can check out the Grow Disrupt page. You can also send me a friend request. I'm happy to connect that way. You could catch us on the websites. We've got thestephaniescheller.com is my personal site, and then we have the growdisrupt.com is the company site, and my team is really good. If you fill those out and you want to connect with me, my team's really good about getting you straight to me.
Well, Stephanie, we can't thank you enough for joining us this week and talking about all these great little nuanced topics that we don't all spend enough time on, I think, sometimes. So thank you for coming on our podcast and enlightening us all with your brilliant ideas.
Yeah, this was so much fun, Stephanie. I look forward to working with you in the future on future podcasts, hopefully.
Definitely.
That sounds awesome. I appreciate it. You guys were great. I had a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everybody tuning in. We hope everybody has a great day. So now let's all get to work.
Yay.